Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Shanna Fold.
And I'm Yochanan El Rome.
In our top story, there have been reports that the United States is in the middle of pushing for a peace deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia. As a carrot to the Saudis, the Biden administration is pushing Israel to do more to support Palestinians. However, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition is against concessions, and parties within the coalition oppose Palestinian statehood. Negotiations for Israeli-Saudi normalization have primarily been between the United States and Saudi Arabia, with Israel receiving third-party updates from Washington.
Israel's security service, the Shin Bet, uncovered an Iranian phishing campaign aimed at gathering information about Israeli policies and citizens. Iranian agents posed as well-known Israelis on platforms like LinkedIn. Then the fake accounts would reach out to civil servants and researchers at top Israeli institutions. The agents impersonated people who had professional or even personal relationships with the citizens they were trying to scam. The initial contact was made through LinkedIn, and the conversation would then continue via email. Then when the person would open an attachment like a relevant news article or an invitation to a conference, the victim would have spyware secretly downloaded onto their computer, easily helping the Iranians grab up information from the device. The Shin Bet played a big role in stopping this coordinated attack from moving forward.
6 people were wounded after a terrorist went on a shooting attack near a shopping mall in Ma'ale Adumim in the Judea and Samaria district. 2 are seriously wounded, 4 suffered light to moderate wounds, and the Palestinian terrorist was killed by an off-duty border police officer. Ma'ale Adumim Mayor Benny Kashriel revealed the terrorist had an entry permit and worked as a cleaner in a community center in the city. The man had a work permit which was issued by Israel's security service, the Shin Bet. This made it seem like the 20-year-old man was a non-security risk.
There is no right of return for Palestinian refugees. This according to Gilad Erdan, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations. His comments came during a UN Security Council meeting on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Erdan explained that demanding the return of millions of descendants of refugee families undermines Israel's right to self-determination. He also criticized UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres for condemning Israeli counterterrorism operations in Jenin. He stressed that all 12 Arab casualties from an operation in early July were in fact active terrorists. The Israeli diplomat questioned the existence of refugee camps within Palestinian cities and accused the UN Relief and Works Agency of perpetuating a brainwashing scheme that prevents integration and encourages the belief that Israel can and should be annihilated.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced a 100 billion shekel high-speed train project connecting Kiryat Shmona in Israel's north with Eilat, all the way down to Israel's most southern point. He linked the project to the potential of an Israeli-Saudi normalization deal, saying he hopes for future rail connections between the two countries. The project aims to ease travel within Israel, allowing citizens to reach the center from anywhere in the country in less than 2 hours. Netanyahu emphasizes the environmental benefits and the elimination of traffic jams and air pollution.
Inspectors searching Israel's desert caves found a rare half-shekel coin dating back to the year 66 or 67 of the Common Era. The coin was part of the rebels' underground economy during the Jewish revolt against the Romans. It has the words Holy Jerusalem inscribed on it in ancient Hebrew letters. This is a symbol of the defiance at the time, and it was a clear display of Jewish identity in the face of Roman rule. Experts say these coins were specifically used to pay taxes as a means to support the Holy Temple in Jerusalem, which all Judeans were required to contribute to. The discovery was made during an extensive survey of caves to protect archaeological finds from looters.
The IDF has begun its main recruitment period for combat units, with thousands of young men and women joining the ranks. The recruits include recent high school graduates, as well as older individuals with an average age of about 19 years old. Of the new soldiers, about 58% are men, 42% are women. 478 are recent immigrants to the Holy Land, and 471 of those immigrants are lone soldiers, meaning they serve the country with no family nearby. Russia, the United States, Ethiopia, Ukraine, and France are the top 5 countries of origin for immigrant soldiers. The Combat Intelligence Corps is set to receive new red combat boots, a pin, and a spotted camouflage beret as a sign of strength and pride within the unit.
All 15 Supreme Court justices will form a panel to hear and discuss a petition against the Reasonable Standard Law scheduled for September 12th. The legislation is an amendment to the Basic Law. It aims to limit the Supreme Court's authority to declare government actions as unreasonable. Justice David Mintz ruled that the hearing would take place in September and rejected requests for interim orders to prevent the law from taking effect. Striking down an amendment to a basic law would be unprecedented and could grant the court even greater power, as basic laws hold quasi-constitutional status.
The president of Zambia, Hakainde Hichilema, visited Israel and is expressing his country's interest in developing closer ties with the Holy Land. He highlighted Israel's advancements in economy, innovation, and technology, and says he hopes to work together in various areas for the benefit of both nations. Zambia is particularly interested in Israel's expertise in water irrigation, which could be valuable for their country. Economic cooperation with Israel is seen as significant for Zambia as well, especially as the nation faces a considerable debt owed to China. During the visit, discussions were held with Israeli officials to strengthen cooperation in fields like medicine, communication, and agriculture, resulting in the signing of a framework agreement between the two countries.
Around 100 Christian Zionists joined thousands of Jews going up to the Temple Mount on the solemn day of Tisha B'Av. Christian participation in the march was to show solidarity and to repent for past atrocities committed by their ancestors against Jews. The 9th day of the Hebrew month of Av is a special day in which the Jewish people mourn the destruction of the first and second holy temples. The trip was organized by the nation's 9th of Av initiative, which aims to recognize historical pain between Christians and Jews and take responsibility for it. Temple Mount activist Rabbi Yehuda Glick led the group and also hosted 27 hours of prayer during the event. The goal of the movement is to bring about a genuine change of direction and understanding between Christians and Jews.
A fox was spotted along the southern wall of the Temple Mount on Tisha B'Av, sparking discussions about the fulfillment of a special prophecy. The sighting went viral on social media as it was connected to a well-known Jewish story where the great sage Rabbi Akiva and others witnessed a fox emerging from the site of the destroyed Second Temple. According to the tradition, the appearance of the fox is linked to a vision by the prophet Uriah regarding the longevity of Jews in the streets of Jerusalem. The fox sighting was seen as a confirmation of Jewish continuity in the capital.
A 79-year-old Israeli man has been returned to the Holy Land after being held hostage in his native Ethiopia. He was detained there in poor conditions for about 3 weeks. Francis Adbayi lives in Rishon LeZion near Tel Aviv. He was captured close to the Sudanese border and was apparently caught up in the middle of a shootout between special forces and his abductors after he had met with some family members in the city of Gondar. When he was abducted, he sent an alarming voicemail to his family, who said he was in harm's way in the jungle. Getting him back was a diplomatic effort, but also involved some private work among Ethiopian Israelis who have close ties to special forces in the East African nation.
Israeli archaeologists have made a significant discovery, unearthing Building 100, a structure that belonged to an elite member of Jerusalem society and was destroyed by fire during the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem in 586 BCE. The findings, published in the Journal of Archaeological Science, indicate the massive building suffered intentional and widespread destruction, likely as a punishment for Jewish disobedience during the 30-month siege. Researchers used various analyses and tests to study the fire's origin and spread, revealing the blaze started on the top floor and quickly consumed the building. The findings give us valuable insights into the destruction of Jerusalem and the First Temple period, making it significant and eye-opening for followers of the Bible. That concludes the news portion for our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Chaim Silberstein. He's the president of Keep Jerusalem. Chaim, thanks for being on the show.
Hi there, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Tell our viewers a little bit about what is Keep Jerusalem.
Keep Jerusalem is a Jerusalem-based organization which also functions internationally, which deals in public diplomacy for the city of Jerusalem. And public diplomacy really means, in this case, advocating for a united, secure, and flourishing Jerusalem against all the attacks, the false narratives, the false facts that one hears in the international community, especially in the radical Muslim world, that the Jews have no rights to Jerusalem, that we are occupying Palestinian lands, and there are intense efforts to delegitimize our connection and our legal rights to Jerusalem. This is something that we combat.
Well, you know, Jerusalem is the undivided capital of Israel. America recognized our rights to Jerusalem when they moved their embassy here. Other embassies are following. Why is there a need for this type of information?
Well, here's a good example. Just recently, President Biden met with the President of Israel, Herzog, and reiterated that the Biden administration supports a two-state solution. And a two-state solution, in their understanding, means dividing up Jerusalem and giving Eastern Jerusalem to the Palestinians as their capital. Secondly, the Biden administration has set up what's called the OPA, the Office for Palestinian Affairs, and that effectively politically divides Jerusalem by recognizing the Arabs living in our united city as separate from Israel.
I understand it's not just rhetoric, though. There's people trying to put facts on the ground to divide Jerusalem through building, illegal building, I might add. Can you tell us about that?
Correct. We also run a research department in our organization, and we have researched and seen that there are over 30,000 illegally built Arab units in Eastern Jerusalem, much of it encouraged and financed by the European community, by other Arab countries around Israel, with the goal of delegitimizing and taking over Jerusalem through what I call the demographic Trojan horse.
Why would these countries want to divide Jerusalem? Don't they see that that Israel being in control of Jerusalem gives freedom of access to all the different locations, to all peoples around the world? Isn't that an important thing for them? What is the benefit of dividing Jerusalem and trying to take Jerusalem away from Israeli sovereignty?
I think there are two reasons. One is the, the good old or bad old anti-Semitism, and people who want to divide Jerusalem see that as a phase to eventually destroy Israel. And if you go for the heart and you injure the heart, which is Jerusalem, eventually the rest of the body will go. I think the other side of it, which is perhaps the current administration in the United States and other Western countries, is that they genuinely think that by dividing up Jerusalem and giving the Palestinians a capital, that will bring peace. I think the opposite would happen.
Christians and Jews believe that the fact that Israel is control of Jerusalem is the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Do you see this having some sort of spiritual aspect as well?
Absolutely. I think that the fact that today Jerusalem is such a flourishing and growing capital, almost 1 million residents, and economically, culturally, and certainly spiritually, Jerusalem is possibly more fulfilling its role than perhaps since the destruction of the Second Temple, which is over 2,000 years ago. I think we see many, many signposts of the approaching redemption. And I think the people that object to that are finding very hard to try and prevent that.
You know, I've been on your tour before, and I've seen how the PA is trying to build from Ramallah down to Bethlehem, right through Jerusalem, to make a continuous corridor. Why is that important to them?
Oh, that's their way of fulfilling the demographic Trojan horse. In other words, the way to destroy Jerusalem is both from outside and from within. And the outside efforts are political, are delegitimization, anti-Semitism, BDS, and terror attacks. And within, it's to take over Jerusalem through buildings and through population. And we've got to be aware of that, Josh.
You mentioned that it's 40% Arab population, yet if we were just to connect Malay Adumim, Atarot, some of the different outer communities to Jerusalem, which has been on the plans for decades, that would flip the numbers almost immediately. Why isn't the Israeli government taking the steps to make that happen? Is this a security situation?
That's, again, a very good question. And in fact, I'm now working, our organization has written a law, and we're collaborating with some of the members of Knesset of the Likud today to actually promote that law. The law has been tabled with the Secretariat of the Knesset, and we hope to move it forward. Also, former Foreign Minister Yisrael Katz also tabled a similar law, and also the Economics Minister Nir Barkat is also working with us to unify those different versions and to bring about a law that which we call the Greater Jerusalem Law, or an umbrella, to create an umbrella municipality that will add on another 200,000 Jewish residents of Jerusalem. But not only that, it will also increase land to build industry, commerce, tourism, sports, entertainment, which will highly benefit Jerusalem just from an urban point of view.
Chaim, there are tens of millions of people watching this show. What message will you have for our viewing audience?
I think that it's really important that each and every one of us educate ourselves about what's going on in Jerusalem, especially from a geopolitical point of view. And every one of you can be an ambassador for Jerusalem to protect us and to ensure that Jerusalem remains Israel's united capital. Visit our website, keepjerusalem.org. Participate in our tours if you visit Israel, and be a great ambassador for Jerusalem.
Thank you, Chaim, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom, and welcome to the Return to Zion with Karen Hayesod. I'm Sam Grundward, World Chairman of Karen Hayesod, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Aliyah is crucial to the success of the State of Israel. Without the constant flow of new immigrants who come from the four corners of the earth, the deserts would not have bloomed, the cities would not have been built, and Israel would not be known as the startup nation. Listen to how God has brought His people back to Israel.
Me and my family always prayed to come to Israel because it's a home, it's our home. 10 months ago, I made Aliyah with my sister. We are living together in Haifa. I'm worrying about my family because the situation in Ukraine now really terrible.
The past decade and a half has witnessed a frightening upsurge of worldwide anti-Semitism, unparalleled since the 1930s. Across Europe, incitement, desecration of Jewish institutions, attacks on Jewish property, and acts of terror, including murder, are striking fear into Jewish communities. From London to Berlin, Brussels to Copenhagen, Jews are being harassed, assaulted, and murdered. The situation is particularly intolerable in France and in Ukraine. In France, violent crimes against Jews have become commonplace.
Avec la multiplication des actes antisémites en France, donc déjà j'ai peur pour moi, mais j'ai aussi peur pour ma famille, pour ma femme, pour mes enfants plus tard.
In eastern Ukraine, over 1 million people have been displaced. In the escalating chaos and lawlessness, Jews have once again become scapegoats, with many anti-Semitic incidents reported.
When I was in school, my classmates told me that, oh, you're Jewish, it's not normal in Ukraine, why you are Jewish? It was very hard for me to speak with them, to describe every time what I do in Ukraine and why I'm Jewish.
I will give to you and your descendants after you the land of your sojourning, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession. But Israel has always been the homeland of the Jewish people. Throughout their 2,000-year exile, the Jews prayed daily to return to the land of Israel. In 1917, Great Britain issued the Balfour Declaration. In 1920, Keren HaYesod was established to raise funds for this purpose. Since the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, Keren HaYesod has helped bring 3.5 million Olim to Israel from the four corners of the earth.
This is Bible prophecy come into fulfillment. It's not just my heart, but I can feel the heart of Abba Father. Abba Father in heaven is so pleased to see his children who are scattered all around the globe is coming back home.
From India to Africa to Europe, record-breaking numbers of Jews are eager to come home. Aliyah rose dramatically in the past year, hitting a 10-year high, despite the security threats that face Israel. Keren HaYesod operates in 45 countries throughout the world. The Keren HaYesod law, passed by the Knesset in January 1956, grants the organization a unique fundraising status. In close coordination with the government and the Jewish Agency for Israel, and in partnership with the global Jewish community and Friends of Israel, Keren HaYesod promotes Aliyah and other national priorities. We need you, dear friends, to be our partners in this noble mission of helping the people of Israel return home before the window of opportunity slams shut and live safely in its secured homeland. Keren HaYesod, with your generous assistance, has redoubled its efforts to facilitate every Jew who wishes to fulfill the biblical prophecy. Friends of Israel, the Holy Land and its people needs you now. He will raise a banner for the nations and gather the exiles of Israel. He will assemble the scattered people of Judah from the four quarters of the earth.
Let's bless Israel together.
Now's the time for you to get involved. Assist Keren HaYesod to raise the necessary funds in order to bring Jews yearning for their homeland back to Israel. Your donation can help fulfill the biblical prophecy today. To donate and get information, visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
And now, shining light from Israel.
Welcome to the City of David. My name is Zev, one of the directors here, and in the next few minutes, we are going to explore 4,000 years of Jerusalem's heritage, which is literally bringing the Bible to life every single day. Let's go have a look. Up until 150 years ago, when people thought, where is the original biblical city of Jerusalem? The city synonymous with people like King David, King Solomon, King Hezekiah, prophets like Isaiah and Jeremiah, there was one answer. Everyone thought it was inside the old city of Jerusalem, surrounded by the iconic old city walls. Now those old city walls only go back about 500 years. Jerusalem goes back some 4,000 years. The original city of Jerusalem, the city of David, would only be rediscovered in 1867 when Queen Victoria of England wants to discover the treasures of the Bible. She sends a man by the name of Captain Charles Warren here to the Holy Land to find those treasures. He comes to Jerusalem and he wants to excavate on Mount Moriah, the Temple Mount. He is unable to, and he says, if I can't excavate on the Temple Mount, I'll excavate near it. And he ends up discovering that the original biblical city of Jerusalem, the city of David, the place where Jerusalem began, is not to be found inside the walls of the old city, but to be found right here in the city of David. Every single day we are unearthing antiquities that show that Jerusalem's biblical heritage, the significance of Jerusalem to Jews and Christians alike, is not simply a matter of faith, but a matter of fact. In 2004, at the southern end of the city of David, there's a road. Beneath the road, there's a sewage pipe, and that sewage pipe bursts. And what happens? The construction crews have to come in and make repairs. The archaeologists are supervising, and they end up discovering a series of ancient steps dating back some 2,000 years, which the archaeologists realize lead down to one of the most significant discoveries for Jews and Christians here in Jerusalem, namely the Pool of Siloam. The historian Josephus says 2,000 years ago, on the pilgrimage festivals of Passover, Pentecost, Tabernacles, you would have had nearly 3 million people going on pilgrimage up to the temple. The Pool of Siloam was the main mikvah, or ritual bath, for those pilgrims to cleanse themselves before their pilgrimage. The archaeologists then wondered, if we know where the Pool of Siloam is at the southern end of the city of David, and the temple atop the Temple Mount a half a mile to the north, how did all those pilgrims make their way up on pilgrimage? So they widen the excavation, and they end up discovering what has been called the most significant archaeological discovery of the last 100 years. Let's go take a look at something not yet open to the public. Follow me. We are standing right now on the ancient pilgrimage road. This is the road that your ancestors and mine 2,000 years ago would have walked on when they went on pilgrimage up to the temple. The road leads from the Pool of Siloam all the way up through the city of David up to the temple on the Temple Mount. Along the side of the road, you can see here the ancient shops and stalls that people on their way up to the temple, maybe they needed a temple offering, here is where they would go to make those purchases on their way up to the temple. Now, the stones you see here are the original flagstones. And you would have had 2,000 years ago, you would have had the sky above our heads. We are standing right now on the biblical superhighway. This was the main thoroughfare in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago as people were making their way down to the Pool of Siloam and back up to the temple on the Temple Mount. Over here, we have a very unique discovery. The only one of its kind found here in Jerusalem. It's found here along the pilgrimage road. This is an ancient podium, soapbox, speaker's corner. If someone 2,000 years ago had a message they wanted to share with the masses, a message they wanted to preach, this is where they would do it from. You can imagine the likes of whom may have stood up here on the podium and walked here along the pilgrimage road. And in just a few years' time, where we're standing here is going to be opened up to the public to literally walk in the footsteps of the Bible. I'm looking forward to hosting you next year in Jerusalem.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Shanna Fold.
And I'm Yochanan Elrom, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.